Guys who were her plan B. What happened when plan A failed, but you already had plan A? Story 1. I didn't know I was plan B until her friend got tipsy at my birthday and said, "You're honestly perfect," once she's done with Evan. Then she laughed like it was cute. I remember the room getting quiet in my head, like someone turned the volume down on my life. I didn't confront her. I just stopped investing. I kept dating, kept working, kept my standards. A month later, I met Maya at a climbing gym. First date turned into weekly hikes. Second month turned into, "You want to meet my friends?" And there was no weird fog around it. No hot and cold. No, "I'm not ready," followed by, "Why aren't you texting?" 3 months into Maya, my ex showed up at my apartment with mascara tracks and a grocery bag like she lived there. Evan cheated? He's trash. I finally see what I had with you. She actually said, "I'm ready now," like she was picking a table at a restaurant. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "I'm not available," I said. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm happy. And I'm not the backup plan you pull out when the main one catches fire." She tried every lever. Guilt, nostalgia, tears, anger. "So you're just going to throw us away?" I shrugged. There was no us. There was you waiting for someone else. Then her phone buzzed and she glanced down like a reflex. Evan? She still had notifications on. That's when I realized she wasn't heartbroken about him. She was panicking about being alone. I went back inside, and Maya was in my kitchen making tea like she belonged there. My ex stood in the hallway with that grocery bag and suddenly understood she didn't lose plan A. She lost the option of plan B. Story 2. In our group chat, she called me the safe one. She thought it was a compliment. I was the guy she'd invite to brunch, drag to IKEA, and text at 1 a.m. when she needed attention. But anytime I suggested something real, meeting her parents, defining what we were, she'd say, "Let's not label it." Then I saw her Instagram story. A blurry hand holding hers at a concert. The caption was, "Finally." The hand belonged to Marcus. Her complicated situation. I didn't even get angry. I just felt stupid for auditioning for a role that wasn't open. So I stopped replying instantly. I stopped being her emotional Uber. And I started doing something I'd postponed for years. Building a life that didn't orbit her. I joined a Sunday football league, started lifting again, and, this part matters, I went on actual dates. That's how I met Lena. She laughed at my dumb jokes and didn't treat affection like a reward. We were official before I even realized how calm love can feel when it isn't a negotiation. 4 months later, Marcus dumped her publicly. Like, unfollowed, deleted photos. New girl, publicly. The next night, my phone lit up. Her, "I miss you." Her, "Can we talk?" Her, "I think I made a mistake." I didn't respond. I was at Lena's place, helping her assemble a shelf, arguing about which screw was which. Normal life stuff. Peace. She called. I finally answered because I wanted it to end clean. She went straight into it. "I should have chosen you. You were always the one who showed up." I said, "You didn't choose me. You used me. There's a difference." She got sharp. "So you're punishing me?" "No," I said. "I'm choosing someone who chooses me back." The next day, she posted a sad quote about men switching up. The comments were full of people hyping her up. Meanwhile, Lena and I went for coffee, and I realized something. Being the safe one only hurts when you keep volunteering for unsafe people. Story 3. She literally had a ranking system. I found out because she left her notes app open on my couch, like a grocery list, except it was men. Names, pros/cons, potential, chemistry, and next to mine, reliable, would marry, not exciting. I stared at it for a full minute, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. When she came out of the bathroom, I just handed her phone back and said, "Interesting spreadsheet." Her face went white, then defensive. "It's just me being organized." "Organized," I repeated. "So what am I, a retirement plan?" She tried to salvage it. "You're taking it wrong. You're amazing." I don't want to settle too young," I said. "I don't want to be someone you settle for." We stopped seeing each other that night. I didn't do the dramatic block everything thing. I just walked away. 2 months later, I met a woman at a friend's housewarming party. Her name was Serena. She asked questions like she actually cared about the answers. When she held my hand, it wasn't to claim me, just to connect. Being with her felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. Then the exciting guy in the notes app, some DJ with a motorcycle, crashed and burned. She texted me a paragraph about maturity and real connection. She ended with, "Can we start over? I'm ready for something serious." I replied with one sentence, "I already have serious." She sent, "Wow, I didn't think you'd move on that fast." I typed, "You didn't think I was a person. You thought I was storage." She tried to call. I didn't pick up. Later, Serena asked why I looked tense. I told her the truth. She didn't get jealous. She just said, "Good. You deserve to be someone's first choice." And that's the moment it hit me. I wasn't not exciting. I was just wasted on someone who only valued fireworks, not warmth. Story 4. I was her plan B in the most subtle way possible. She only wanted me when she was bored, lonely, or between real prospects. If I pulled away, she'd suddenly become sweet. If I leaned in, she'd suddenly get busy. It was like she was training me to chase. Then I stopped playing. I took a new job in another city. Same company, better pay. I didn't even tell her until it was official. She found out through a mutual friend and called me furious. "So you can make life decisions without me now?" That sentence should have been my warning label, but it was also my wake-up call. In the new city, I said yes to everything I used to delay. New gym, new friends, new routine. I met Ava at a coworker's game night. She beat me in every round and didn't apologize for it. We started dating, and it was effortless in a way that felt almost suspicious at first. 5 months later, my old flame showed up at my office building. No warning. She'd driven 3 hours. She said, "Plan A didn't work." I realized what matters. I actually laughed, because she said it like she was revealing a profound truth, not reciting the obvious. She followed me outside, crying. "Please, I came all this way," I said. "You came because you ran out of options." Her face twisted. "So she's your plan A now?" "Yes," I said, and it felt clean. "Because she treats me like I'm hers." That's when she snapped, "You're not even that special." And I swear, the second she said it, she regretted it. Because Ava had just walked out of the building holding 2 coffees. She heard enough. Ava looked at my ex, then at me. "We good?" I nodded. "We're great." My ex stood there, realizing the thing she hated most wasn't losing me. It was seeing me chosen, openly, proudly, by someone else, while she was left standing with nothing but her own tactics. Story 5. She kept me on a leash with compliments. "Your husband material. Any girl would be lucky. I just need time." Meanwhile, she was always talking to someone else. She'd vanish for days, then reappear like I was supposed to feel honored. I finally asked, "What are we?" She smiled like I was adorable. "You're important to me." That's not an answer. It's the only answer you need. So I left. Not angrily. Just exited the situation. I muted her everywhere and focused on myself. I started therapy because I wanted to understand why I'd accepted crumbs and called it a meal. I started saying no without writing an essay. A few weeks later, I matched with Naomi. She was direct. First date, she said, "I'm looking for something real. If you're not, tell me now." No games. No fog. By the time my ex resurfaced, Naomi and I were already building actual plans. Weekend trips, meeting family, even discussing moving in. I didn't feel trapped. I felt chosen. My ex texted, "I heard you're seeing someone. So that's it? After everything?" I replied, "After everything, yes." She begged for coffee. To talk like adults. I agreed, mostly for closure. She showed up dressed like a second chance movie scene, eyes glossy, voice soft. "I messed up. I should have treated you better. I didn't realize what I had." I asked one question. "Why now?" She hesitated, then said the truth by accident. "Because I'm tired of starting over." There it was. Not love. Exhaustion. I stood up. "I'm not your solution to inconvenience." She grabbed my wrist. "So who is she? Some rebound?" I looked at her hand on me and said, calm as ice, "She's my plan A. And you taught me why I needed one." When I walked out, she called after me, loud enough for half the cafe to hear. "You'll come back." I turned around once. "No. I already did the waiting. Now you can do it." And for the first time, she didn't have a clever reply. Because the entire room had just watched her lose the one person she thought she could always keep in storage. Story 6. She never called it Plan B out loud. She didn't have to. It was in the way she'd disappear when her favorite guy texted, then come back with a "miss you" the second he stopped feeding her attention. I was the emotional charging station. One night she invited me to a bar. Just us. Halfway through my drink, she angled her phone so I could accidentally see the text. "Come over," from him. She watched my face like it was a test. "Go," I said. "You seem busy." She blinked, disappointed I didn't fight. "You're okay with that?" "I'm okay with clarity," I said, and left. 2 weeks later, I met Kate through a friend's charity run. No flirting games, no mystery. Just steady interest. When I asked her out, she said yes without making it feel like I won a contest. 3 months in, my ex's plan A got exposed for juggling 3 girls. She called me at midnight sobbing, saying, "You were the only real one." I said, "I'm not a consolation prize." She snapped, "So you're just replacing me?" I answered, "No, I'm upgrading my standards. She showed up at my gym the next day, pretending it was coincidence. Kate was there, tying her hair up, ready to train. My ex did that little smile that meant I'm about to reclaim my property. Kate looked at her and said, "Hi. You must be the one who taught him what he never wants again." I didn't even need to speak. That was the moment my ex understood. Plan B doesn't stay on the shelf forever. Story 7. My friends warned me. She keeps you around because you're stable. I defended her like an idiot. Then I found out she had a nickname for me. The safe bet. She'd said it in a voice note to her best friend. One I heard by accident when she played it in the car. She tried to laugh it off. It's a compliment. No, I said. It's what you call someone you don't respect. I stopped answering her late night, "You up?" texts. I stopped being her free therapist. I put my energy into the one thing she could never control, my future. I took a certification, got a promotion, started traveling on weekends. In Prague, I met Lara in a tiny cafe because I asked if the seat was taken. That was it. No dramatic chase. We spent the whole day walking, talking, and laughing like we'd known each other for years. Long distance turned into visits. Visits turned into plans. Then plan A failed for my ex. She called, voice sweet like honey. "I'm ready for something real. I want us." I said, "You want safety, not me." She got angry fast. "You think you're better now? I think I'm finally unavailable to your chaos." She texted Lara on Instagram the next day. A whole paragraph about how I was emotionally immature and runs when things get serious. Lara just showed me and asked, "Do you want me to block her?" I said, "No. Let her watch." Nothing destroys a backup plan mentality like seeing the backup build a life without you. Story 8. I was her plan B in the most humiliating way. She'd plan dates with me and cancel if her maybe guy hinted he might be free. Not even confirmed. Just hinted. And she'd say, "Don't be mad. Something came up." Like my time was a toy she could drop and pick up. So I flipped the script. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I just filled my calendar. That's how I met Nina. Because I said yes to a coworker's invite to a board game night I would have skipped before, just in case my ex wanted me. Nina was sharp, funny, and brutally honest. When I told her my dating history, she said, "So you're the emergency contact." That ends now. A few months later, my ex called out of nowhere. He finally asked me to be his girlfriend. And then he dumped me 2 weeks later. I feel stupid. "Can I come over?" I said. "No." She laughed like I was joking. "Come on. You always what?" I cut in. "Always save you?" Silence. Then anger. "So she's controlling you?" I said. "No. I'm controlling." She showed up at my place anyway. Like she could override my answer. Nina happened to be leaving, holding leftovers in a container. She opened the door, saw my ex, and said, "If you're looking for the guy who used to wait around, he moved out months ago." My ex stood there, mouth open, like the world had violated its rules. And I realized, the hardest part for her wasn't losing Plan A. It was losing her access to Plan B. Story 9. We worked together, which made it worse. Office flirting, lunches. Maybe someday, she'd keep me close enough to feel chosen, but never close enough to actually choose me. Anytime I pulled away, she'd pull me back with a compliment or a confession about how scared she was. Then she started dating the new guy from marketing. Loud, cocky, always trying to perform. She paraded him around like a trophy and still expected me to be her emotional support when he annoyed her. One day she complained, "He doesn't listen like you do." I said, "Then talk to him." She frowned. "Why are you being weird?" "Because I'm not your spare boyfriend," I said. That weekend I went on a date with Jasmine, someone my sister had been trying to set me up with forever. Jasmine was calm, confident, and the first person in a long time who didn't make me feel like love was a prize I had to earn. A month later, marketing guy got fired for some HR mess. My coworker came to my desk crying. "I made a mistake. I should have gone with you. You're the one I trust." I didn't even stand up. I just said, "Trust isn't romance, and I'm not available." She stared at my desk like the answer was hidden in my keyboard. Then she whispered, "You're really moving on." I said, "I moved on the day I realized you only wanted me when you were losing." The next Monday, she avoided me completely. And honestly, that was the first peaceful week I'd had in that office. Story 10. She kept me as her just in case, but she was smart about it. She'd randomly send selfies, ask my opinion on outfits, call me when she had a bad day, and sprinkle in lines like, "I don't know what I'd do without you," enough to keep me emotionally invested. Meanwhile, her plan A was a guy who treated her like a revolving door. In, out, in again. Every time he left, she'd run to me like I was the safe harbor. Every time he returned, she'd vanish. Then my cousin invited me to his wedding, and I met Emma. Bridesmaid. Zero tolerance for nonsense. She asked me why I looked distracted during the speeches, and I told her the truth. She said, "So you're waiting to be chosen by someone who's already chosen someone else." It wasn't cruel. It was clean. Emma and I started dating, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was negotiating for scraps. I felt like someone was building with me. 2 months later, my ex's plan A got engaged to someone else. She called me screaming like I personally caused it. "He used me. I can't believe this." I listened, then she said the line I knew was coming. "Maybe we should finally be together." I paused. "Do you even like me?" "Of course I do," she snapped. "No," I said. "You like what I provide. There's a difference." She showed up at the same cafe Emma and I always went to, like a movie villain. She walked to our table and said, "So this is her." Emma didn't flinch. She just said, "And you're the reason he learned boundaries." "Thank you." My ex looked around, realizing everyone had heard. Her cheeks went red, but she still tried. "You'll regret choosing her over me," I smiled. "I already regretted choosing you. Never again." And that was it. The backup plan became unavailable, permanently. Story 11. She had a rule. I was only boyfriend material when she was freshly disappointed. If her plan A ignored her, I'd get a "miss you." If he showed up again, I'd get silence. The breaking point was her birthday. She invited me to dinner with her friends, acted affectionate all night, even held my hand under the table. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her whole face changed. "Eli texted," she whispered like it was sacred. "He wants to meet up." I stared at her. "Right now?" She shrugged. "It's complicated." So I stood up, put cash on the table for my portion, and said, "Have fun." Her friends went quiet. She followed me outside, hissing, "Are you seriously doing this to me tonight?" I said, "You did it to yourself every time you kept me on standby." 2 weeks later, my cousin set me up with his coworker, Dana. Dana didn't flirt like she was bargaining. She looked at me like a person. When I told her I wasn't into games, she said, "Good. I'm not auditioning for love." 3 months in, my ex showed up crying at my car after work. "Eli ghosted me. I feel stupid. I should have chosen you," I said. "You didn't choose me when things were good. So why would I trust you when things are bad?" She snapped. "So you're punishing me?" "No," I said. "I'm protecting the life you didn't value." Then Dana called. I answered, smiled, and my ex watched the difference in my voice. That's what broke her. Not rejection, but realizing I could sound that happy without her. Story 12. I found out I was Plan B in a group chat screenshot. She sent it to me by accident, then tried to unsend it, but my phone had already loaded it. Her friend wrote, "So which one do you actually want?" And she replied, "I want Ryan, but if he doesn't commit, I'll just date Mark. Mark is safe." Mark was me. I didn't even confront her immediately. I just sat there staring at my name like it belonged to someone else. When she called, voice all sweetness, I said, "I saw the screenshot." She went quiet for half a second, then went into damage control. "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant," I said. "I'm the insurance policy." I blocked her number and focused on a project I'd been procrastinating, launching a small online store with a friend. It took off faster than we expected. I started meeting new people, going to events, living like someone who wasn't waiting for permission. At one event, I met Sophia. She asked what I was building, not who I was dating. That alone was intoxicating. We started seeing each other. It was calm, not chaotic, real. Then Ryan dumped my ex, and she came running back with the most insulting line. "Okay, I'm ready to be serious now," I replied. "I'm already serious, with someone who never needed a now." She showed up at my store's pop-up booth, trying to just talk. Sophia was helping me pack orders, sleeves rolled up, laughing with customers. My ex stood there watching us work like a team, and you could see it land. I wasn't a backup plan anymore. I was a whole life she no longer had access to. Story 13. She loved keeping doors open. Let's not rush, I'm not ready for commitment. But she also loved calling me when she was sick, when her car broke down, when she needed someone to listen. She'd say, "You're the only one I can rely on." Then she'd go flirt with her plan A at parties right in front of me. One night at a house party, I overheard her friend tease her, "So when are you going to lock him down?" She laughed and said, "Why would I? He's not going anywhere." That sentence hit like a slap. The next day, I moved my stuff out of her place. Small things I'd left there, like a toothbrush and a hoodie. When she noticed, she called me dramatic. "It's not that deep," I said. "It's deep enough that you think I'm furniture." I started dating intentionally. Not revenge dating, just real, adult dating. And I met Chloe, who asked direct questions and gave direct answers. When I told her what happened, she said, "Good. Now we can build something without a ghost in the room." A month later, my ex's plan A humiliated her at a club. flirted with another girl, and told my ex to relax. She ran outside and called me sobbing, saying, "I need you." I said, "You need stability." "You don't need me," she screamed. "Why are you being so cold?" "Because warmth is for people who choose you," I said. Later, Chloe and I ran into my ex at the grocery store. My ex tried to do the stare down. Chloe just smiled politely, took my hand and said, "We're having dinner with his parents tonight." My ex's face fell like she'd been punched. That's when I realized her real panic wasn't losing Plan A. It was seeing me become someone's Plan A. Story 4. We were never official, but she treated me like her emergency boyfriend. She'd send flirty texts, then go silent. Then she'd call at midnight saying, "I miss you," and I'd show up like an idiot. Every time I tried to define things, she'd say, "I just don't want to settle." Then her Plan A, some tattooed free spirit guy, moved in with his ex temporarily. She told me this while sitting on my couch, crying, eating my ice cream. "He's confused," she said. I replied, "He's not confused. He's choosing someone else." She got mad at me for saying it. That's when I understood. She didn't want honesty. She wanted comfort. I started saying no. Then I started saying yes to my own life. Joined a weekend photography group. Met Elise there. Elise was quiet confidence. She didn't demand attention. She earned respect. We started dating, slow and steady. 2 months later, my ex called, voice trembling. "He's back with his ex." "I can't believe I wasted time," I said. "You wasted my time too." She whispered, "So what do we do?" "We don't do anything," I said. "I'm in a relationship." She laughed bitterly. "Of course you are. You always wanted that." "No," I said. "I always wanted it with someone who wanted it back." She tried to show up at my photography meetup like she could win me back in public, but Elise was there, camera in hand. And my ex looked like a random stranger next to a life that actually fit me. She left before anyone even introduced her. That was the most satisfying part. She didn't get a scene. She just got reality. Story 15. My ex used to say, "You're the one I'll marry one day." She'd say it smiling, like she was promising me a prize. Meanwhile, she dated other guys, chased the same toxic spark, and kept me close as her safety net. I finally tested the pattern. I stopped initiating texts. I stopped offering help. I stopped being her free emotional labor. It took exactly 4 days for her to call me crying about her Plan A. He said he doesn't want anything serious. "Why do men do this?" I said. "Because you keep rewarding them." She got offended. "So you're blaming me?" "I'm telling you the truth you avoid," I said. That week, I went on a date with a woman named Iris I'd met through a friend. Iris had standards and peace. She didn't interrogate me, she observed me. She didn't play games, she played piano. Our second date was a bookstore and coffee. And I remember thinking, this is what normal feels like. When my ex found out, she flipped. She demanded a meeting to talk. We met in a park. She showed up angry, not sad. "So you're just moving on?" she said. "Yes," I replied. "I'm done being your backup." She tried the final weapon. "If you loved me, you'd wait." I said, "If you loved me, you wouldn't ask me to." She stared at me like she couldn't compute that answer. Then she said, quieter, "What does she have that I don't?" I said, "She chose me without needing someone else to fail first." And that was the first time she looked genuinely ashamed, because it was the first time someone said the quiet part out loud. Story 16. She didn't even hide it. She'd say things like, "You're such a good guy. I don't want to ruin you." Then go chase the same guy who ruined her every weekend. I was her healthy option, which is just a polite way of saying, not my first choice. The night I finally snapped was at a friend's engagement party. She showed up with me, took pictures with me, and then spent half the night staring across the room at her Plan A. When he waved her over, she squeezed my arm and said, "Don't be weird, okay?" Like I was the problem. I went to the bar, grabbed my coat, and left without a speech. 10 minutes later, my phone blew up. "Where are you? Are you mad? Stop being dramatic." I replied with one line. "I'm done being your accessory." A month later, I met Talia at a volunteering event. She was warm but not desperate. When I asked her out, she didn't act like she was granting a wish. She said, "Sure, I like you. Let's see where it goes." Simple. Then my ex's Plan A dumped her, again. She came to my place with that same rehearsal cry face and said, "I finally understand. You're the one who actually cares." I said, "Caring isn't enough if you only want it when you're bleeding." She tried to push past me into my apartment. And that's when Talia walked up the stairs, saw her, and said, "Is this a safety inspection or a relapse?" My ex froze. I said, "Relapse," and closed the door. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Story 17. She kept me in what I call the almost zone. Almost a relationship. Almost exclusive. Almost serious. Whenever I asked for clarity, she'd say, I just need to be sure. But she was always sure about texting her plan A back within 10 seconds. One day, she asked me to help her move apartments. I spent 6 hours carrying boxes, assembling furniture, sweating like a paid mover. At the end, she kissed my cheek and said, I don't know what I'd do without you. Her phone buzzed. She smiled. It's Nate. He wants to grab drinks. I set the screwdriver down and said, Go. She laughed. You're so sweet. You don't get jealous. No, I said. I get tired. I walked out and didn't come back. She called me ungrateful. Ungrateful for what? Being used? I started dating again and met Mira, a physical therapist who treated my time like it mattered. When she said she'd call, she called. When she made plans, she kept them. That consistency felt like a luxury. 2 months later, my ex texted, Nate was playing me. I should have listened to you. I replied, You didn't listen. You borrowed me. She showed up at the coffee shop where Mira and I were sitting. She didn't even say hello to Mira, just looked at me and said, So you replaced me. Mira calmly sipped her drink and said, No, he replaced the pattern. My ex looked like she wanted to argue, but you can't argue with a truth that clean. Story 18. I realized I was plan B when she tried to schedule me like an appointment. Can you hang out Thursday? I might be free. Might? I asked. Well, if Jason doesn't answer, she said, totally casual, like she was choosing between 2 restaurants. That's when something in me shut off. I said, No worries. I'm not free. She sounded shocked. Since when? Since I stopped waiting for might. I didn't block her. I just reclassified her. Not as special, not as potential, just as someone I used to know. Then I met Olivia at a language exchange meetup. We bonded over how awkward first conversations can be. After 2 dates, she said, I like you. I'm not looking to keep options open. Are you? I told her the truth. No. I want one option that chooses me. Olivia smiled like she'd been waiting to hear that her whole life. When Jason ghosted my ex for the final time, she tried the grand return. I've been thinking about us, she said. We should try for real. I replied, I already did. With someone else. She didn't take it gracefully. She DM'd Olivia some nasty message about me being emotionally unavailable. Olivia showed me, laughed once, and said, Is she auditioning for the role of villain? Then Olivia posted a photo of us at dinner. Nothing petty, just happy. My ex watched every story for a week straight. I know because a mutual friend told me. Apparently losing plan A hurt. But watching plan B become someone else's plan A drove her insane. Story 19. She used me for all the boyfriend benefits without the boyfriend responsibility. Road trips, cuddling, help with errands, late night talks. If I pulled back, she'd accuse me of changing. If I asked for commitment, she'd say, I don't want to ruin what we have. What we had was a one-sided arrangement. The final straw was when she asked me to attend her work gala as her +1. I rented a suit, bought her flowers, and she posted us on her Instagram story. People assumed we were together. Then her plan A showed up. She lit up like a stage spotlight. She literally left me at the table and spent the night with him, laughing, touching his arm, acting like I didn't exist. On the drive home, she said, Don't be mad. He just brings out a side of me. I kept my eyes on the road. Cool. Let him bring you home next time. I ended things the next day. She called me insecure. I didn't argue. A few months later, I met Hannah at a cooking class. She was messy in a charming way, confident without being loud. We started building something real, meeting friends, planning weekends, making boring life stuff feel good. Then my ex called, sobbing, saying plan A used her. I said, I know. I watched it happen. She whispered, Can I see you? I said, No, I'm not your recovery room. She sent a long message about how I was the only safe love. I didn't reply. I just cooked dinner with Hannah and realized safe love isn't supposed to feel like being kept in storage. Story 20. My ex loved talking about timing. Timing was her excuse for everything. The timing isn't right. I'm figuring myself out. Meanwhile, she always had perfect timing to meet her plan A when he snapped his fingers. I played along longer than I'm proud of. Then one day she accidentally sent me a voice note meant for her friend. If he's still there when this blows up with Connor, I'll just date him. He's obsessed with me. Obsessed. That's what she thought. I called her and said, Delete my number. She laughed. Are you having a mood? No, I said. I'm having self-respect. I threw myself into my own life. I started training for a half marathon and met Brooke on a running route. Brooke was the kind of person who didn't need attention to feel valuable. She was steady. She showed up. She didn't play emotional chess. When Connor dumped my ex, she showed up at my door like it was scripted. Please. I'm sorry. I was scared. I want you, I said. You want not being alone. She tried to push inside, eyes scanning my apartment like she was searching for evidence. Then Brooke walked out of my kitchen holding 2 mugs of tea and said, "Hey babe, who's at the—" My ex went rigid. Brooke looked at her politely and asked, "Can I help you?" My ex stammered, I just wanted to talk." Brooke nodded. "He's busy. If it's important, you can email." The humiliation on my ex's face was immediate. She wasn't used to being handled like a stranger. She left without another word, and I closed the door, turned to Brooke, and felt this quiet victory. The person who thought I was still there learned the hard way that people aren't parking spots. Story 21. She kept me in a neat little box labeled later, when she was ready. Later, when she'd had her fun. Later, when the bad boys stopped exciting her. I was so patient it was embarrassing. Then I met her parents by accident at a coffee shop. Her mom smiled and said, "Oh, you're the one she talks to when she's upset." Her dad shook my hand like I was an employee. That's when I realized even her family had me categorized. 2 weeks later, she called me at 2 a.m., crying because Plan A had gone on a trip with another girl. "I feel stupid," she sobbed. "I just need you right now." I said, "No." She sniffed. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I'm not on call." She got sharp. "Since when are you like this?" "Since I stopped confusing loyalty with self-disrespect." I went back to sleep. The next morning, I took my sister's advice and went on a date with a woman she'd been trying to set me up with. Alina. Alina showed up on time, put her phone away, and listened like she wasn't hunting for better options. I almost didn't know what to do with that. A month later, my ex texted, "I miss your energy." Not me. My energy. I replied, "You can't rent it anymore." She tried one last move, showing up at my friend's birthday where she knew I'd be. She walked in like a comeback story and found me laughing with Alina, our hands tangled like it was natural. My ex stood there for a full minute, waiting for me to notice her first. I didn't. That's what finally broke her. Story 22. She called me her best friend in public and her almost in private. We'd hook up, we'd cuddle, we'd do couple things. Then she'd go flirt with her Plan A like I didn't exist. If I reacted, she'd say, "We're not together, remember?" One day I said, "Then stop treating me like we are." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic." So I made it simple. I stopped giving her girlfriend privileges. No more rides. No more late-night therapy. No more, "I'm lonely, come over." She didn't like losing control of the faucet. That same week, I met Priya at a networking event. She was blunt in a way that felt like relief. After we talked for an hour, she said, "If you want to take me out, ask me. If you don't waste my time." I asked her. She smiled. Done. 2 months into dating Priya, my ex's Plan A failed loudly. He posted another girl, then captioned it with something about real love. My ex called me furious, like I owed her emotional labor. "Can you come over?" "I can't be alone," I said. "Call a friend." "You're my friend," she snapped. "No," I said. "I was your convenience." She showed up at my building anyway, crying in the lobby, making a scene. Priya walked in mid-performance, took one look, and said to the security guard, "She doesn't live here." Then to me, "Do you want this in your life?" I didn't even hesitate. No. My ex stared at Priya like she couldn't believe another woman would set a boundary on my behalf. That's the thing about Plan B. It only works when the person stays pliable. I stopped being pliable. Story 23. My ex used to joke, "If I don't get married by 30, I'll marry you." She'd say it like it was adorable. I laughed along until one day she repeated it in front of her friends and they all nodded like it was a contract. I asked her later, "Do you actually like me, or do you like the idea of me?" She said, "Why are you making it weird? You know you're special." But special didn't stop her from chasing Plan A, a guy who treated commitment like an allergy. She'd come to me after he bailed, talk about how she wanted stability, then vanish the moment he texted. I finally quit the cycle and started dating intentionally. That's how I met Tess, a teacher who had the kind of calm confidence that makes chaos feel childish. Our dates were simple: dinner, walks, laughing. No emotional hostage situation. Then my ex's Plan A failed for good. She called with a dramatic voice. "I'm done with games. I want something real. I want you." I paused. "You want a deadline, not a relationship." She got offended. "So you're saying I'm shallow?" "I'm saying you're panicking," I replied. A week later, she tried to accidentally bump into me at a bookstore. Tess was with me, flipping through a novel. My ex came up smiling too hard. "Wow, so this is happening." Tess looked at her, then at me, and said, "You're the one who kept him as a backup, right?" My ex's smile collapsed. "Excuse me?" Tess shrugged. "That's what people do when they don't value someone until they're unavailable." My ex left without buying a single book. I bought 2. One for Tess, one for me. It felt symbolic. I was finally investing in the right story. Story 24. She loved the chase. If a guy treated her badly, she treated it like a sport. If a guy treated her well, she got bored. Guess where that left me? She'd text me, "I miss you," then follow it with, "But I'm not ready for anything serious." Translation: stay available while I try other things. Then I got a job offer overseas. Nothing permanent, 6 months. But it was a dream assignment. When I told her, she looked annoyed, not happy. "So you're just leaving?" I said. "Yes." She laughed like I was bluffing. "You'll be back." Overseas, I met a woman named Marin through coworkers. Marin had her life together and wasn't impressed by performative confidence. We started dating, and for the first time, I felt chosen without having to compete. When my ex's plan A exploded, he got arrested for some stupid bar fight and then blamed her online, she texted me a long apology. "I realize now you were the only one who cared. I want to fix this," I replied. "I'm in a relationship," she said. "So you're just throwing me away?" I answered. "You can't throw away something you never held properly." She tried to call. I didn't pick up. Later, she posted vague quotes about men changing when they level up. Meanwhile, I was in a new country, holding Marin's hand, realizing I hadn't leveled up. I'd just stopped settling. Story 25. She treated me like a subscription. Activate when needed, pause when inconvenient. She'd call for help with her resume, her rent negotiation, her family drama, then disappear when her plan A returned. I didn't even feel like a person. I felt like a service. The moment I snapped was when she asked me to pick her up from the airport. I waited 40 minutes, then she texted, "Never mind, Liam came. You can go." Like I was an Uber she canceled. I didn't reply. I just drove home and decided, I'm done. I went quiet and focused on myself. Joined a boxing gym. Made new friends. Started saying yes to dates I'd previously ignored. That's how I met Rosa, who asked me straight up on date 1, "Do you have a messy situation lingering?" I said, "Not anymore." A couple months later, my ex called like nothing happened. "Hey stranger, I miss you. Liam was a mistake." I said, "You mean Liam didn't work out?" She went silent. Then, "So what? You're with someone?" "Yes," she scoffed. "Must be nice. You move on so fast." I replied, "I moved on the moment you treated my time like trash. You just didn't notice because you were busy." She tried to come back with, "You'll regret this." I said, "I already regretted waiting." Then Rosa walked in, heard the last line, and raised an eyebrow. I hung up and she asked, "Was that the subscription?" I smiled. Cancelled. No renewal. Story 26. She always had an emergency that required my attention. A fight with her mom. A panic attack. A bad date with plan A. I'd show up, calm her down, make her laugh, and she'd whisper, "You're the only one who makes me feel safe." Then, the next day, she'd be back in his comments like I didn't exist. The night I stopped playing was when she called me crying and said, "Can you come over?" "I can't sleep," I said. "Who are you calling after me?" She hesitated. "What?" "Answer it," I said. "Am I the first call or the last resort?" Silence. Then she snapped, "Why are you interrogating me?" "Because I'm done being your sedative," I replied, and hung up. A week later, at a friend's dinner, I met Yvonne. She was a lawyer, sharp and calm, and she didn't perform emotion for attention. When I walked her to her car, she said, "You seem like someone who's been carrying someone else's chaos." I laughed because it was too accurate. 2 months into dating Yvonne, my ex's plan A dumped her in the cruelest way. Changed his status, blocked her, posted a new girl. She came running back with the classic line, "I didn't realize what I had." I met her outside my building and said, "You did realize. You just thought I'd still be here." She cried harder. "Please, just one chance." I said, "My chance is already invested." When Yvonne came downstairs and saw her, she didn't glare, didn't posture. She just asked me, "Are you safe?" Then she looked at my ex and said, "He's not your emergency plan anymore." My ex walked away like someone had finally taken her favorite tool out of her hands. Story 27. She treated commitment like a coupon, only valid when her preferred option expired. She'd say, "I can't do relationships," and then spend every weekend with her plan A, posting soft launch photos that conveniently cut his face out. I finally asked her, "Do you actually want me?" She smiled. "I want you in my life." "That's not the same," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Why do you always need labels?" So I labeled the truth. I left. I started going to a small indie theater alone, something I'd always wanted to do but never did because I was waiting for her schedule. One night, the girl in the seat next to me whispered a sarcastic comment about the movie, and I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Her name was Camille. Camille didn't flirt like she was negotiating power. She was straightforward. After our second date, she said, "If you're still emotionally tied to someone, tell me now." I said, "I'm tied to my own peace." When my ex's plan A failed, caught messaging multiple girls, she tried to spin it into destiny. Maybe this happened because we're meant to be. I said, no. It happened because he's consistent. Consistently selfish. She got angry. So she's controlling you now? I replied. No. I'm just no longer controllable. She showed up at the theater one night, waited near the entrance like she was staging a reunion. Camille saw her first and simply took my hand. My ex's eyes locked on our fingers and you could see it. She wasn't heartbroken. She was furious that the door she kept half open had finally been closed by someone else. Story 28. I was her plan B in the most corporate way possible. She scheduled me between disappointments. If plan A canceled, she'd text me like, hey, are you free? Not, I want to see you, just free. Like I was an open slot. I stopped accepting last-minute invites. The first time I said no, she acted like I'd committed a crime. What are you doing that's more important? She demanded. My life, I said. That weekend, my life was a friend's hiking trip where I met Leah. Leah was the kind of person who didn't treat people as placeholders. She asked me questions and actually waited for the answers. We hiked, talked, and by the end she said, you seem grounded. That's rare. We started dating. It was quiet in the best way. Then my ex's plan A failed spectacularly. He moved in with her, stayed 3 weeks, then left a note and vanished. A note. Like a coward in a movie. She called me hysterical. I need you to come over. I'm falling apart. I said, call your friends. She screamed, you're my friend. I replied, no, I was your backup battery. She tried showing up at my workplace crying in the parking lot. Leah happened to be picking me up. Leah rolled down the window and said, calm as ice. He said no. Respect it. My ex shouted, who are you? Leah answered, the person he chose before you remembered he existed. My ex stood there shaking, realizing she couldn't guilt her way back into a role I'd fired her from. Story 29. She liked me best when I was useful. When I helped her study. When I fixed her sink. When I listened to her rant about the guy she couldn't quit. But the moment I needed something, support, consistency, a real relationship, she'd vanish. One day she asked me to co-sign a lease because her credit was bad. That's when I realized how deep the entitlement went. Why would you ask me that? I said. Because you care about me, she replied like it was obvious. I didn't yell. I just said, no, and watched her expression shift from sweet to irritated in 1 second. Like a mask slipping. A month later, I met Morgan at a friend's game night. Morgan was the type who noticed details. How I held doors, how I treated servers, how I listened. She didn't reward me with affection like I'd earned a point. She just gave it when she felt it. When my ex's plan A failed and she came back offering a real chance, I didn't even feel tempted. She said, I'm ready to settle down. I asked, with me or with stability? She snapped, what's the difference? And that was the answer. She tried to add Morgan on social media and DM her a sob story. Morgan showed me, shrugged, and said, she's shopping for a life raft. Then she kissed my cheek and said, not our problem. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was losing someone. I felt like I was escaping. Story 30. She was obsessed with being chased. If I pulled back, she got sweeter. If I leaned in, she got bored. It trained me to act like love was a test I kept failing. Then I met her plan A at a bar, because she brought me there as her friend. He shook my hand and said, so you're the guy she talks to when she's mad at me. He smirked like we were co-workers in her little emotional factory. I went home and stared at my ceiling for an hour, finally seeing the whole thing clearly. I wasn't competing with him. I was being used to make him jealous, to make her feel desired, to make her feel safe. So I left. No fight. No closure speech. I just disappeared from her orbit. I took a solo weekend trip and met Aaron at a museum. We ended up walking through exhibits together and talking for hours. Aaron said, I like you. You seem steady. Are you single? I laughed and said, single with paperwork. Dating Aaron was the opposite of my old life. No manipulations, no sudden disappearances. Just consistency. When my ex's plan A failed, he posted another girl and called my ex crazy for reacting. She came back with a long paragraph about realizing my worth. I replied, you're realizing your options changed. She showed up at the museum cafe where Aaron and I were sitting, trying to manufacture a big moment. She said loudly, so you're just moving on like I meant nothing? People turned to stare. Aaron stood up calmly and said, he moved on because you treated him like a spare. Please don't make a scene. My ex looked around, realizing the audience wasn't on her side. She stormed out, humiliated, and for the first time in my life, I didn't chase after her. I sat back down and finished my coffee with someone who never needed another man to fail before she chose me.